loading snacks.
What it do, snackers, snackettes, and snack X's? Your boy Gage is here with jokes.
Yo.
There's the double yo. You are now tuned in a Loading Snacks Weekly, where we get together once a week and we talk about things that are happening in pop culture. And today, we got a pretty solid show. Jokes, don't you think? I mean,
I think so.
There's some things to talk about. We are gonna talk about the largest Pokemon sale of all time. We're gonna recap the state of play from last Thursday. We'll also talk about the Mandalorian and Grogu trailer, because how can we not? We're not going to watch it. We're just going to talk about it. We will watch it, but you won't see that here. We'll watch it and we'll react to it live for our Patreon members. You'll be able to go back and see that. And then Jokes is going to, razzle dazzle us with his top 3 Scream films of all time. I know I said top 5s, but it's a top 3. And we'll explain why it's a top 3. When we get there, right, Jokes?
Yes, sir.
Before we do that, we are obviously going to let you know how you can get in contact with us. Jokes will put our link in the description, in the chat for you all. I do recognize that some of you may be forced to watch on Facebook right now because there's something weird going on with YouTube. I don't think it's you. I think it's them. I don't think it's you. I think it's them.
In this case, it really is them and not you.
I'm pretty sure. So yeah, if that's the case, we're sorry. Hopefully you'll catch up later, or you just transition. It's the beauty of being able to be live in more than one place at a time. Isn't that right, Joe?
Absolutely.
So now, having said that, and knowing that you can go and support us, the best way to do that is on Patreon. And on that note, it's time for the 619 Hall of Fame.
Yeah, so let's shout out our top tier patrons, starting with Anthony Cunningham, Marcus Houston, Susan Dortch, Tyrone Carson, Meticulous Skin, Alex Lee, Ellis Mbe, and Kermit Ferguson. Thank you very much. We truly, truly appreciate it.
100%.
1,000,000%. Jokes. We absolutely do appreciate you all. Thank you so much.
What up, Heather?
What's up, Heather? Heather, did you go to Katsu over the weekend? I didn't go. Jokes didn't go, but Kay was there.
Kay did.
Secretly filming and shooting stuff with people and catching all the cosplay. Jokes.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like you missed out by not going to Katsu?
I don't. I don't. Like, normally, like with all of our cosplayer friends and everyone that's in there, like, I actually didn't see a ton of stuff really show up from Katsu. And it didn't seem like we really missed out on anything, probably is the way to say, at least just from not seeing as much. But
maybe. I do always enjoy seeing the people we haven't seen in a couple of months,
mm-hmm.
or whatever. For some people, it's the first time we run into them. You know what I mean? For the year. So maybe we haven't seen them since like Baltimore or something like that, because they don't come to like Ocean City, or they don't do a Stellar or something like that. Heather said, nope, last went to Mag, next is Blurred. And on that note, we also skipped Mag though. So I kind of felt, a little bit out of that. Yeah, what up, Cuddy? Yeah, K was definitely Ashy Larry. It was a little tricky. However, he had a good time.
Mm-hmm.
and we definitely had a good conversation about it. And he shot some really good content. So even though I missed it, I'm glad he went and had a chance to go. We will be at Blurred in the next couple weeks. It's
Yeah, a
like 3
couple
weeks
weeks.
out, and then Awesome Con right behind that. But we'll talk about that later. Now it's time for what had happened was hashtag WHHW, which of course is last week's news. Hook me up.
Number one.
How sweet it is. How sweet it is. How sweet it is. So, jokes.
Yes, sir.
You know I'm not a Pokemon person. I'm also not a Logan Paul or a Jake Paul person. But Logan Paul had a record sale of a Pokemon card over the last couple of days. He sold a Pikachu Illustrator card.
Mm-hmm.
Which is one of 39 cards, a very rare card. He picked up this card for like 5.3 million or something like that.
Yep.
A few years ago, wore it in his WWE debut on like a necklace in like a diamond encrusted chain case, and sold it at auction. Let me just make sure I'm reading this right. For $16.5 million. With what the auction house gets, it's about an $8 million come up, which is
kind of
pretty
nice.
significant. Now, I don't know what a Pikachu Illustrator card is. If I saw one in the wild, I would know it. I wouldn't even, it wouldn't even be a thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think this means? Did it sell the way it sold? Because here's one of the things I think is important to know. It sold with the diamond encrusted chain case. Logan Paul is personally hand delivering the card to the person who won the auction. And of course, it was worn in his debut to the WWE. So there's a lot more history to this card than the fact that it's a rare Pikachu card. Do you think that those things had anything to do with what it sold for, and does it add to what the value of the actual card is, making it different from any of the other 38 of those cards that exist?
I'm gonna say partially. Now, to kind of give you guys an idea, so obviously, being one of 39 still known to be in existence, so unlike normal cards, the Illustrator Pikachu card was one that you could not purchase. This was back in early 2000s, maybe late 90s. In Japan, they had an actual contest that people drew specific designs and sent out. Inevitably, I believe what the winning card ended up being was what the card became. And the only way that you got this Illustrator card was if you submitted into that contest. So this wasn't something that like, hey, you bought 50 packs and after ripping through them you were going to be able to get this card. No, you had to enter that contest way back when to be able to get sent that card. Obviously in the world, I'm pretty sure there was more than 39 that were sent out, but obviously as time has taken its toll and people losing collections and all that type of stuff, there's only a few handful in existence. I do think it is graded by PSA, and it is graded a Gem Mint 10, which is PSA's highest standard that they issue on a card.
On that note, just real quick, I do want to say there's been a lot. PSA's been like, it's been a lot of talk about PSA and them and the way they grade things, and other companies coming in to kind of step in because they have such control over it, and their control over how they grade a thing and what that means in terms of value. I'm even seeing people like, there are these like grading machines now that people are bringing in that do like automatic, and so it's flat across the board and make sure that everything is done fairly. So what a PSA value means right now versus what it might mean a year from now or a month from now could be very different. I just want to point that out.
Very much
PSA,
so.
they do, and it's, obviously it's not just Pokemon cards. They do comic books and sports cards and stuff like that in terms of grading the value and the condition of cards is and comic books and stuff like that. Is what they do. But continue.
Yeah, so that's the biggest piece. So obviously, being a super rare card and then getting PSA's highest standard grade on the card. It is to mention, I do believe it was resubmitted and turned into a 10 because I believe it was actually a 9 beforehand, which is very very interesting.
See?
And don't get me wrong, that's one thing about grading by hand. Everybody has a different eye, certain things. So, but we're not gonna go into that because that's a whole nother conversation. But between the two of those things, give the card, I would say, the majority of the value of what it is for. Yeah, Logan Paul he upgraded, and the diamond encrusted chain that's around it was valued at $75,000. So even with the value of it, that's still a very small drop in the bucket for what the chain actually is on there for it. But definitely just the rarity of the card and getting pretty much a perfect grade on it is really what sets the standard for how much that card went for.
Yeah, I mean, I just figure one of the things that's a little bit strange about it is that the card. So this was a 42-day auction. 42 days. This card was up for auction, and it stayed at around like $6 million or so until like the very last minute, until like the very last day, and all of a sudden somebody swoops in with like an additional $10 million or so added to that, which is a little, again, it seems a little strange, and it's hard not to it's hard for there to not be a level of scrutiny that comes with something like this when you're dealing with the Paul brothers, because everything they do is like, it's overdone and everything is fake, and you know what I mean? It's all for show. And so it's really hard not to look at it and look at what it is and look at something like that and not feel like, something maybe is a little kooky here. At the same time, I do think it's very difficult to deny. Look, a lot of times something like this, a card like that, is a garage sale find. There is no other real story than that, right? Oh, it's been in my attic for however
whatever
many years.
For
I had it somewhere in the closet and I didn't even realize I had it, and I came across it or whatever. Like, those stories are more or less a dime a dozen for this kind of a card. You know what I mean? Being at auction or whatever. So I do feel like it's undeniable that like this card has a story that is different from every other card. Like, I just don't think you could take another card, if you find another one, even if it is a grade 10 graded by PSA, and go, well, the last one sold for 16, so this one definitely should sell for 16, because that card isn't the card that Logan Paul wore in his WWE debut. You know what I mean? Like, you just don't, it doesn't have that same story. So, I don't know, man. I feel like it's different. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing for the value of the cards overall, but it could be good in that that kind of a thing just puts more eyes on it, brings more news to it. And I can almost guarantee you that it means that more and more people, like, again, the trading card thing has gone way up in the last, for real, just a year.
Yeah,
right?
100%.
The other thing that's crazy about it is, I feel like it could have sold for more if he waited like another week. Like if we just waited for the anniversary of Pokemon, like it's what, the 30th anniversary of Pokemon is coming like this week, right? So it almost just feels like if he'd have waited like another week, it could have been worth.
Yeah, I'm surprised he didn't wait until Pokemon Day to do the whole entire event that he did, because obviously selling, he sold the Illustrator Pikachu card, but there was another auction that was going alongside it where he had a first edition box of the original set of Pokemon cards and literally auctioned off each pack individually. And if you were able to get and win said pack, you could actually either go there and open it on stream, or he would send it to you. And roughly, like, out of the 36 packs, I think there was only, in total, it was like 8 purchasers. Like, one person bought like 20 packs or something like that. In mind, these things went for like 8, 9, 10 grand a pop for some of them. And yeah, so like, I think that could have been an amazing thing to do on Pokemon Day. I'm sure, I don't know if he's tried to partner with Pokemon and everything, but obviously they're probably not going to want to partner up maybe with the Logan brother, with the Paul brothers, but I think if he'd have waited,
you never know, man.
It's possible.
You never know. I can't call it. It's a super interesting story. To be honest, I love seeing, again, anytime stuff that we grew up with, the stuff that defines us as being the geeks we are, and having people that are mainstream, millionaires, sports, like that kind of crossover is like, you can't really measure it until you sell a card for that kind of money, you know what I mean, or something like that, right? Like even him just showing up into the WWE with it around his neck is, it kind of elevates and puts a lot more eyes on that kind of thing, and helps to make being in that space a little bit more okay, if you will. So, we'll see where the monetary value and so forth of these things goes from here. But it's time to move on, so hook me up.
Number 2.
New Mandalorian and Grogu trailer dropped today. You did watch it.
Yes, sir.
I did watch it. Again, we're not gonna watch it here, but what are your thoughts? I have thoughts. As I usually do. What are your thoughts on the trailer?
Much better than the little small clippets and things that we've been getting over like the last couple weeks.
I'm sorry. Wait, the what we've been getting?
What did I say? I don't even know what I said. The little clip. I don't even know what you want to call them. Like, I wouldn't even call them teasers.
I feel like you made up a word, and I feel like that word was clippets. And
clippets? I feel like that's out of K's dictionary, honestly.
I don't think we're gonna blame him for what I've only ever heard you say. But that's definitely going in the vernacular. Like, I need to, like, we gonna yeah. All right. So, yep, little baby clippets, if you will, y'all.
Clippets.
Like, that's
clip it.
That's what teaser trailers are called now. Clippets. That's what Super Bowl commercial teasers are. They're clippets, right?
Z on it right now.
See, look, clippets and whatnot ever. That's it. You know what I'm saying? All right.
But
so better than the clippets we've been getting.
Yeah,
I'm with
it. It was okay. like I still feel
Okay.
like it didn't necessarily give us, I like the fact like not the full context of maybe what the movie really truly is about. And for all we know, a lot of that could still be garbage with the way that they can do trailers at times for it. I thought the biggest interesting thing, and I think you probably have a thought on this, was something that we've talked about numerous times, is we said eventually there was no way that they were going to keep that helmet on Pedro Pascal, and in the trailer, he loses that helmet. And I was like, well, there we go. There's just there wasn't too
Well,
much
it's
there. I
necessary.
figured that would end up happening in the movie. I didn't think they were just going to straight up just throw that in the trailer and be like, but hey, there's like Pedro Pascal.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think you have to do it in the trailer because I think you need for people like his name. He's just so much bigger
Mm-hmm.
of an actor than he was even when the first Mandalorian season came out. And so like you can't it's this it's we've talked about it a bunch of times, but it's the same thing that happened with X-Men when they redid when they did First Class, and it's like we have Jennifer Lawrence. Jennifer Lawrence was like, and then Hunger Games and Silver Linings Playbook and whatever, and she literally becomes the biggest actor on the planet. And you have her contracted for 3 movies. Well, we can't keep her blue, bro. We gotta show her face, and we gotta make the movies about her. She's the biggest actress, so she's going to be, truthfully, our box office draw, right? And that's what this is at this point. When you think about it, in a film like this, if you look at it, there's like maybe one other human, I think, in this trailer.
Sigourney Weaver.
Even if, that's like, so even if you have some of the biggest voice actors or actors doing voice work for characters in this movie, you can't show them. So what's your draw, right? It's Pedro. So you need people to know that up front. You can't, like, you got to remember that. So here's where my thoughts come in. I think my biggest issue with this movie right now is too much comedy. It's looking very silly. And what I'm getting from what I'm seeing is that this movie is geared towards children.
Mm-hmm.
This movie is supposed to be a family film. This is an attempt by Lucasfilm / Disney to say, hey, we got to get kids in. Grogu is super cute. We got to get kids in. Like, there's a franchise that is sitting in the name Grogu that Disney is just waiting to squeeze every bit of juice out of. And they have every intention of making this the most family-friendly thing they can, as much as they can, so that they bring in families to watch it, which also obviously increases your dollars, right? So,
definitely
look, you can take, if you feel like the best movie that came out in the last year is Sinners, you look at a Zootopia. Zootopia is a family film. So you're not talking about somebody going on a date or going to see it by themselves or whatever and having to deal with ticket sales like that. You're talking about whole families going, right? And whole families going more than once, which means much higher ticket sales, right? And Star Wars might need that under their belt after what the last few films that went to theaters were like, right? So I'm just not positive that I like it for Mandalorian because to me, nothing about the show felt like what this trailer doesn't feel like it matches the energy of the show at all. And so as a fan of the show, my expectation when they announced the movie was that, oh snap, we're getting the show as a feature-length film. That's not what this is. This is clearly not what this is. It is something that's very different. And so my question for you is, with this movie coming out, with that notion in your head that like they're pushing this really more towards kids again, like it's just the levity in the film and so forth, are we entering truthfully entering like a new era of Star Wars with this film, and is it going to have an effect on what
The
more
greater.
films like it need coming in the future? Yeah.
I think so. Like I think we've hit that point where Star Wars is gonna have to reinvent itself a little bit. Like obviously you're gonna have those diehard people that love Star Wars through and through for what it is. But I feel like right now, The Mandalorian is probably the best. Yeah, probably the best thing that they have currently. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, Andor, great show. Not going to be for everybody, especially if you're trying to pull in your kids and things like that to be able to get into.
Mm-hmm.
But somehow, if you're able to, I don't want to say they're going to do this, but almost like creating two worlds for Mandalorian. So obviously, you're going to have this movie variation that's going to live in the way that it is, where maybe at the end it'll have some tie-in that will take us back to the show. But I feel like we're going to have these two tones that are going to end up being different from one another. Like obviously, hey, we're going to take the whole family. By all means, the kids can watch the show. Like it's not like it's like gory, violent, like that type of thing. But
No,
I
but
feel
it just has some weight to it. Like it's not. Yeah, I mean, and yeah, you're right. It's not, but it definitely does not present itself as a show that is geared towards a younger audience.
Mm-hmm.
This
and when you take
feels very PG.
Mm-hmm.
This doesn't even feel PG-13 to me. But again, it could be.
Mm-hmm.
But based on this trailer, it feels very PG, and
Mm-hmm.
it is making me think. Again, if you just look at what they've done with Marvel, you take the success of Spider-Man and the Spider-Man shows. They have that Spider-Man show where they're all like chibi and smaller, and it is bringing a lot of very, very young 2, 3, 4, and 5-year-olds into that Marvel realm, introducing them to characters that as they grow up, they'll see more and they'll learn more and they'll be able to do more. The thing is that, and there's a lot of lore that already exists, right? Like with that, and you kind of have that, but they have that Young Jedi adventure show. It's got like 3 seasons, right? So it had to have done as a show well enough, for that. But that is also a very different show in terms of the audience that it's geared towards versus like the Bad Batch, right? And that being an animated show that doesn't really feel like it's geared towards children. Bad Batch doesn't feel like Saturday morning cartoons. It feels a little bit more anime and straightforward and a little less, So it's an interesting space. I think the film will find success.
Oh, 100%.
I think that Pedro Pascal as a character having someone young being toted along with him that he's there to kind of protect or take care of has become a meme, if you will. But I definitely think that it'll be interesting to see how the success or failure or mediocrity, maybe it doesn't fail, maybe it's just kind of right up the middle, but it'll be very interesting to see how the success of this movie informs the way that they handle Star Wars and the content that they're creating going forward. Because if you think about the slate of films that they already have that are supposed to be coming, shows that they're already supposed to be doing, does it mean that you pivot on some of that because so much of it is new and you're bringing so much in and you're introducing a lot of it in a lot of different ways all at the same time, right? Trying to do what you can to invite in and keep audiences of all sizes, ages, what I mean?
100%.
And you're trying to new. It's not an easy thing to juggle. So I'm not mad at the intent. But again, I do it pointed with
the final product of what we end up getting.
Yeah. So It remains to be seen. Right now, I'm not sold. I'm going
happy
to
to
see
see Mando and
it. There
Grogu.
are a lot of people.
I'm happy to see him.
Yeah,
But it's like not
it
quite
just is very silly right
not
now.
quite the
You know what I mean? Like,
Mandalorian just yet.
nah, it's Mando and Grogu. It's
Yep.
like, look, you're kind of exiting a show that is the Mandalorian and moving into like buddy cop territory, which is a little strange, but kind of what it is. And so even just, dog, if you just look at the font and the way that the title is written, it's kind of like that wavy. It speaks whimsical. It doesn't speak Mandalorian, like the outline of the character in the dark with the brownish orange and all that. Like it doesn't speak to the seriousness of that at all. And it could be right that they're aiming to show, Mando was very gruff at the beginning of that series, who he was and who he ends up being by the end of it, when he decides that Grogu, the kid, is more important to him and he is playing a father figure. It might just be that he's changed, quote unquote, as a person, as a Mandalorian, and now is viewing things and seeing things differently. And I'm not opposed to that swing completely. But if they're not careful about how they do it, it's going to feel like you're just jumping into it instead of working your way into it. And so again, we'll see. We'll see how it turns out. You have any other thoughts on that?
Nah, I think I'm good. I think I'm good for it for now. I'm just ready for it to come out. Miss you too, kid.
Yeah.
And then of course one more good old Rob calling in from Comics Pro in LA right now.
What up? Yeah, man. Listen, don't let that time jump. You know what I mean? You went backwards in time, and I don't want you to lose yourself while you're over there. But have a really good time and be safe, for sure. Jokes, hook me up.
Number 3.
Jokes. Last week, we did some predictions for the PlayStation State of Play that we knew was upcoming for Thursday. You and I have not really had a chance to talk about it in depth, but we need to just do a quick recap. We're not going to go over everything. There was a lot.
It was a lot.
For an hour-long show, there was a lot in this show. And I'm going to say it's probably, in my opinion, this is the best State of Play they've done in probably 2 years.
I agree. I 100% agree with that. It was a little bit of everything in there. It was something for everyone. Like if you would have found something in there that you would have liked one way or the other.
Yeah, PlayStation 5, video games in general, but PlayStation 5 has been kind of a slow burn. I just think with the way that game development has changed, how long game development takes, obviously with the console coming out during COVID 2020, all that's had an effect on it. There's, talk just this week, within the last day or so, of the possibility of the PlayStation 6 not coming out until the end of 2028, possibly 2029, with what's happening with the availability of chips and the costs and all that kind of stuff. And, I think that right now, even when the PS5 Pro came out, even when there were rumors of the PS5 Pro, it felt like there were developers who were going like, we've barely scratched the surface of what a PS5 can do. Why are we doing a PS5 Pro? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Something along those lines. Which again, there was also development that was happening for the PS4 for much longer than they intended, to happen, because again, so many people are still playing on PS4. Like it's not even, just because of what happened and because of cost and because of the pandemic and so forth. And so a lot more games ended up being cross-generational than normally would have been. This State of Play honestly feels like the first State of Play that we got that felt like a PS5 State of Play. like a PS5 Pro state of play. It wasn't quite there for me prior to that, and I think some of it was just like, yeah, there's this one game, or there are these two games, but this was like there was a lot in here, so we need to jump on it and talk about some of what we saw. We did correctly predict that the Ghost of Yōtei Legends would be shown here, so we got that. I'm excited about it. I haven't even played Ghost of Yōtei yet. I'm excited to jump into it because I didn't really align with the first game, but everything that everyone's saying about this one is that it's better, and that the story is actually good in this one, and it wasn't great in the last one. And Legends I really enjoyed, so I'm looking forward to jumping into it now and jumping into Legends and getting into some of the multiplayer, because that was my favorite part of what the last game was. Legacy of Kain. So 2 announcements for Legacy of Kain. Legacy of Kain Defiance getting a remaster, and then a brand new Legacy of Kain game that is like a side-scrolling Metroidvania, if you will. The 2D side-scrolling thing might be getting a little overdone. You know, it feels like first-person shooters, like it just like everybody wants to do a first-person shooter now. Like everybody wants to do a hero shooter. Like there's just like, you know, we got a lot of them last year. They're difficult to come by and have them be really, really good, but a lot of them just kind of feel like you're doing the same thing over and over again. And so I'm a fan of Legacy of Kain. I'm glad that they're doing a remake of Defiance. I don't know what your history is like with Legacy of Kain at all, but I
never played them.
Probably doesn't really.
I know what they were. I never played them. Never played them.
It makes sense. People were on it before I got into it, and I didn't get into it until it hit the Dreamcast, and loved it. But you know, I just, again, I'm glad that they're doing something with it, and that the IP itself is seeing some love. I just don't know that I'm happy about the ways that they're doing some of it. I would almost rather it was like, yeah, we're gonna do a new game, or we're going to do like some full-on remakes, which is what I honestly believe those games need / deserve, is like some full-on remakes as opposed to just remastering the old games. I can't not talk about, you texted me, bro. We texted our group in all caps, as you do. So let's talk about why you texted the group during well, I guess technically that part of the state of play, I feel like it was, I'd already seen it by the time you texted it. So I don't know,
you had seen that already? Oh, I hadn't, because I was watching it semi in real time as it was happening. So when I first got to that part, it was just like cool, but then I was just like, oh. But
well, tell us what it is.
We did say, of course, one thing is I was like, something God of War is probably going to be among this. Of course, you said the 2D side scrolling thing was probably going to show up. Absolutely did show up. Was not expecting. They announced that God of War 1, 2, and 3 not only is coming back, but they are getting complete remakes, which I thought I was like, oh, that's a little bit of a tall order for 3 games. Now they didn't specify, if all of them were going to come out at the same time, or if it's going to be like, one here and there or whatever that may.
Did they announce it? Maybe I'm trying to think. Did they announce it as God of War 1, 2, and 3 remake, or did they announce it as God of War trilogy remake? I feel like they said trilogy.
Maybe I'm pretty sure they said trilogy
that way.
Yeah, pretty sure
that makes me feel like it's all 3 games together, like as in one package. But so, the part you were super excited about didn't really seem to be about the remake.
OG Kratos, TC Carson, will be reprising his voice in the trilogy of games. I thought, a lot of people were upset originally when, of course, the current gen God of War games came out. Christopher Judd ended up being the voice of Kratos. By all, of course,
Right.
amazing Kratos. But to be able to have the OG come back and be able to add his voice back to the remake again, it just sounds right. It sounds right. It feels right. If you're gonna remake a game and then probably end up taking out probably one of the biggest elements of what made that game something, probably wasn't gonna necessarily be the best thing. So I thought that was super, super cool.
Yeah, I think the important thing about that is that it really sells the idea that they're doing remakes. But just because if you're bringing in the cast and redoing the voice work for the game, then you're doing something. And there's a part of me that feels like in them doing remakes of the game, they may actually change a few things that might make things make sense for where they want to take the series going forward from here. Like there's been a lot of talk about God of War doing Egyptian gods and like that, that kind of thing. Now that they've gone from like Greek gods to Norse gods and whatever, so like where do they go next? And so and there were some hints at that in the last two games. So it'll be interesting to see. And look, I'll keep it a buck. The side-scrolling 2D Sons of Sparta looks like trash. It looks terrible. It doesn't look fun. It doesn't look good, like graphic. Like it doesn't need like it. There's no, and then them like shadow dropping and being like it's available right today. Now. So what, dog? So what? Like that looks bad, bro. It looks bad. It doesn't look like it's fun. I won't touch that joint at all. And I'm disappointed in that because I like me a side scrolling. Like
I know you do. I know you do.
But it ain't gonna happen. So I just be twiddling my thumbs until that remake drops. Because I think at this point it means that we're probably at least another 2 to 3 years out before we see another new God of War game, which maybe means PlayStation 6. You know what I mean? When they do it, like it could, but it'll be cross-gen. There's no way it's not. But
yeah,
that's what I'm thinking. All right, Marvel Tōkon Fighting Souls. We said that there would be new characters.
Yeah,
we were
doing pretty good. We were doing pretty good on this one.
Yeah. We got 4 new characters revealed, specifically the mutants and the mutant team, which now is making me think that there's another element to this game that wasn't there before. Like we know that this is a 4-on-4 fighter, but because they specifically called out this team as the mutant team, so it was Storm, Magic, Wolverine, and Danger. And we have to talk about Danger, which we'll do in a minute. But them consistently calling out them makes it seem like maybe there's an element of something where if you have characters that are from the same team. Because they also said, like, what team do you think will be revealed next kind of thing? So clearly, like, they got to do an event team and they got to do this. Like, it's like, all right, well, they got to do a fantastic. This is a 4-on-4 fighter. They got to do the Fantastic Four.
You have to do the Fantastic Four.
You have to. You just told on yourself. So like, we know what has to be coming, right? I think that they said that there's going to be 20 fighters total in this game at release. Obviously, they can add more characters down the road.
20 fighters is not bad.
You say that, but let me ask you a question. Is 20 fighters enough when you're talking a 4-on-4 fighter? We've never had a 4-on-4 fighter before. But if you're talking 4-on-4, then you're only talking about 5 teams. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, you can mix and match, I would imagine, any of the 20 that you want. But when you're talking 4-on-4, is 20 enough characters for that? You know what I'm saying? It's just something to think about, right? If you were talking about a 1-on-1, 20 characters is cool. Even if you're talking about a 2-on-2, 20 characters is cool. But like for a 4-on-4 fighter where you don't have any choice but to select 4, to some extent, and like it's also almost like, again, depending on how the game plays, like why wouldn't you, especially if there's something special about picking characters that
The whole
like belong
team's
together,
from the same.
why wouldn't you pick that team? That basically means that you only have 5 teams to choose from instead of you technically having 20 characters to choose from. However, bro, listen, if they take a small hint out of what is easily the greatest set of Marvel games ever, the Legends, and it, like in those games, you know how like they had different groups of 4, but they gave you different like upgrades. So like there was like the Femme Fatale. If you had 4 female characters, you got an upgrade. If you had the X-Men, you got a different kind of upgrade. If you had, like if they do stuff like that in there that adds some sort of a buff or something like that across choosing your 4 characters, then we're talking about a bunch of different combinations that could also be really dope and could end up being really cool. So we're gonna put a pin in talking about Danger and who Danger is and what that is, because I know for a lot of people that kind of flew under the radar and they didn't understand what that was. I don't even know if you're familiar with Danger as the character, but it's very interesting.
I have an idea, but not fully.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about it later. We'll put a pin in it. Patreon members are gonna get to hear us talk about that a little bit. And then the last big thing for me personally was the Metal Gear Solid 2 collection, the Metal Gear Solid Collection 2. For no other reason than Metal Gear Solid 4 will now be playable somewhere other than on a PlayStation 3. Which is a thing that I just feel like is important, not just for preservation's sake, but like it was very interesting that like Capcom had their entire own like segment / section of of the show. I can't say that I'm like enthralled with what the new Castlevania game looked like, but like whatever. The Metal Gear Solid, like I never played through Metal Gear Solid 4 because it was trapped on a PS3. Yeah, so by the time that game came out, I had sold my PS3. I was like, this joint, not doing anything with this. So I had gotten rid of it, and I wasn't going to get another one for it. And I was like, well, again, it was one of those things where like it was exclusive. I'm upset about that because it's like it's Metal Gear and it's been on I know that they have come out and been exclusive for a period of time on PlayStation consoles, but like, come on, this is where we live. And so the fact that not only was it exclusive, but because of the architecture of that system, it was just never on anything else. Like it being trapped behind that wall is kind of crazy. But now, we'll jump in there and we'll get with it. Is there anything else that I didn't mention that stood out for you?
Yeah, the one other thing that honestly was probably on not anybody's guessing game. We are getting a John Wick AAA video game. Now, granted,
no, listen, I'm gonna cut you off, and the only reason why I'm doing this is because this game's not real, bro. I don't believe it at all. It's not real. And this I will say this. This is one of the things that pisses me off about Sony and the way that they do stuff like this. They will announce things that ain't coming or ain't coming for years.
This joint is not any even if they make something, this game is probably 4 or 5 years probably in the earliest phases than anything.
Like not even, bro. One, is anybody going to care about John Wick by the time this comes out? That's one. Like, 2, we see no gameplay. We know nothing about this game, what it's actually going to play like, what it's going to be like. There are other John Wick games that exist, right? So the idea that they're trying to sell you that, like, no, this is going to be like actually being like John Wick, it won't be like a strategy game or isn't going to be some overhead. I will believe it when I see it, and I will trust it when the people making it have proven to me that they can make this type of a game. Like, I refuse to allow myself to get excited. I'm not going to jokes. I sat up I sat up in my seat when I saw it. But the moment I realized that this isn't real, this is just like this is not gameplay. This is just a CG render. Like for real, they could have just took scenes from the movie and recut them in CG, and it would have been like, this is like, I would have been more happy if they'd have been like, yeah, there's a CG animated John Wick show coming out. And once I realized, I'm like, dog, this isn't real. I sat right back. I was like, man, I can't get excited about this. Why are y'all selling fortunes out here? Like, they're playing with you right now, jokes. Don't let them do that to you. You know what I'm saying? You also texted that in all caps to me, and I was like, jokes.
Hey, listen.
Snake oil, bro.
It is. But either way, just seeing the CG rendering, just having him just kick all their asses like he would kick it like right in the movies, it was cool. It was good to see that. It was good to see that. So I'll wait my 5 years, but like you said, I probably won't care. Because by the time it comes out, depending on the release date, that joint may be right around something else too. So,
hey, Joe, let me ask you a question. And this is like, real talk. How old will you be in 5 years?
41.
No, I don't think you did that math right, dog.
Yeah.
I don't think you did that math right.
5 years, yes. 40. If you add from now, I turned 37 this year, so 37 this year.
I'm just saying, dog. Like, you feel like the 45 seconds of footage you saw there is worth the wait to 40 to 41, 42?
I don't know.
I can't.
Maybe depend on what console you have at that point.
You know what? I'll be honest with you, dog. It still could come out before Grand Theft Auto 6. Like, who knows if that joint can drop like it's supposed to. It might better drop this year, but we still might get that joint first. You know what, dog? I'm not mad at you being excited about it. I'm mad at them for getting you excited about it, selling you a drink. You know what I'm saying? If I could grab them by their collar, you know what I'm saying, and shake my fist in their face and tell them don't sell my man dreams, that's what I would do about that joint right now. That's how I feel about it. All right. Totally fair. I will say again, there were a lot more games and a lot more that was shown there. A lot of what they showed looked really good. A lot of it was stuff we had seen before, but just we got more. Like the 007 joint, that's the best I've seen that joint look. Like I saw of the First Light joint, like I was already in just because. Yeah. But when I saw this joint, I was like,
this is what you needed to do. We didn't need the cars thing. Yeah. When y'all showed that card thing, it was kind of like, yeah, whatever. Yeah, I'm ready for it.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. Okay, that does it for WHHW. Now it's time to move into our top 3 for the day. Jokes.
Mm-hmm.
You are a huge fan of the Scream films, correct?
I love the Scream franchise.
What is it? Why? What is it about the Scream franchise?
I think for me, like, I don't want to say, like, it's not necessarily like it's not a fourth wall break type of thing, but, you know, originally hearing, you know, I'm going to tell you how a scary movie works because we're living in this right now. And then kind of going through, I thought it was a cool concept when they first did it. Like, obviously, you know, we didn't had the horror movies. We knew the typical type of things. But it was a little bit different than what a normal type of horror movie would actually do. So, yeah. And then naturally, with Scream, you had it they had the stab movies within the movie that kind of were trying to recreate the elements of it. Small little tidbit. But I've just always enjoyed the story that they've progressed. And, of course, keeping your main core characters and then trying to work it through, because you know there's always, when you get to, like, and they said it good doing them, when you get to the trilogy, it's kind of like, man, this could either go horribly wrong or, you know, things could go absolutely great. And it's just like, back then it didn't hit the same as now when you actually hear it and watch it and hear those type of things, because it's like the trilogy sometimes can make or break it. But obviously we're on Screen 7, which is getting ready to drop now. So clearly they did something right. But Scream was one of those, I just loved it. Never really had like a super amount. I thoroughly enjoyed them.
Okay. All right. It's not specific characters or
Nah, I wouldn't
something
say I
along those
love
lines. It's the concept of the movies.
is the movies. I wouldn't say I'm a pulled into like one specific character. Obviously, there's 6 currently out. The Ghostface, like I guess, spoiler alert, like there's different Ghostface, like they're not all the same. Like it's not the same person that's behind the mask in every single one of them. But it's being able to just, continuously do this and then make it interesting every single time for it. So
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Let's run it down. Give me your top 3.
Cool.
Starting with your number 3.
Number 3 will be Scream 2. So going into a sequel, you gotta, and this is nothing. You gotta be able to take the stakes up another notch. Obviously, the first one came out, it was successful. You gotta figure out how you can now take it up another notch for it. So, like the same way they said in the movie, though, it's gonna be more bloody, it's gonna be more gore. Like we gotta do these things to amp up the story. And obviously, continuing from the first one, how do we continue this story without necessarily exactly copying and doing the exact same thing over again? They did technically do that, by all means, but they really drove it as a sequel, gave you the same elements from the first one that worked great, and then just turned the notch up a little bit on it for it. You didn't overly get what you probably were thinking about it. It was just enough that it was like, hey, this is definitely a better interaction than the first one. By all means, it's still not number 1. You'll kind of probably guess what number 1 is, but definitely a great sequel. Did an amazing job, used the characters in it well, thought it was great.
All right. What's your number 2?
Number 2 is Scream 6. Now, as we get further in the franchise, the first thing is like, holy crap, we're at 6 now. And it's like, we got new people in here. This is going to end up being one of those things where like, oh, we're going to get rid of the old characters. We're going to bring in this new batch. We're going to try to do the same thing over again in a new way. Normally when you would think of that, you probably be like, it's not going to work. But they absolutely nailed it with keeping the core cast around, but being able to bring in a new batch of people. And of course, that is Scream 6 at that point. I don't want to say it's a trilogy at that point per se, because they did do the first 3 were deeply connected to each other because they were like 1, 2, and 3.
Right.
The 4th one was a continuation. The 5th one was like a soft. 5 was like a soft. Yeah, 5 was like a soft reboot of the franchise with keeping the core characters but changing up the elements a little bit. But being able to take the Ghostface element and work it in with newer cast, newer people, I thought it worked well. And then obviously, you do lose one of the core characters in the previous movie, so it's a little bit different now as you're going into this, because it's like, oh snap, nobody's actually safe. So,
well, they also brought back Hayden Panettiere's character in 6.
They brought her back,
so
which was pretty cool, and gave her character a little twist from the previous one, because it's like she went from being, a student with the rest of them to, I work with the FBI, and it's just like,
right. It was a whole, Well, whatever happened to her, yeah.
And so, and they did a very good job. Like, obviously, with Ghostface, you're always trying to figure out who this is behind the mask. 6 did a very good job at eliminating someone that you probably wouldn't think was actually going to be Ghostface, ended up turning out and actually being Ghostface. I don't want to
tell you that I called.
You called
in the
it?
theater. I called it. I was like, yeah.
With that, I don't want to get into too many, especially if you want to go watch it. Like, I'm not gonna get into too much details, but let's just say a character gets removed from the playing field. You don't really think about it, and then get to the end, and unless you're Gage, you didn't necessarily see it coming in it. But I think they did a great job at telling a new story, and then really starting to set something up, which honestly, we probably will not see the fruits of the labor that they started setting up in that movie because of the fact the two main actresses that were in it no longer a part of the franchise anymore. So
Yeah.
put a pin
Yeah.
in that. Maybe we'll be able to come back to that at some point in time.
Yeah. There, we'll see. All right. So, what's number one?
Number one, OG Scream. Scream 96. I'll say it that way because Scream 5 was technically titled Scream as well too, but Scream 96, the original just set the precedence for a different type of horror movie per se. No, not the typical, your Jason, your Freddy Krueger. Like, it set up something different. And there's tons of references to other horror movies that they use in there, but being able to base this movie on the concept of horror movies was one of those it's Wes Craven. So let's throw out, of course, Wes Craven is the creator of the Scream franchise. A mind like that to be able to take something like as simple as a horror movie franchise and being able to change it up a little bit to give it a little bit of a different spin to it. Not your typical, what's the word I want to look for? Super, like your immune villain that you can't necessarily kill. It wasn't like you were out here.
Right. It's not a supernatural.
Supernatural. That's the
villain.
word I want to look for. It's not a supernatural being that you're having in here. This is, for all intents and purposes, a normal human that is just able to maneuver, manipulate, and do things to kind of give you those appearances that, I got superhuman abilities out here. We see the evolution of that as we go through the franchise, but the first movie did something that we really hadn't seen necessarily in the horror genre. So I would say I appreciate it a lot more now than I did when I was younger, when I first watched the franchise. And
how old were you when you first saw it? You couldn't have seen it in the theater when it first came out.
Absolutely not. I absolutely did not see this in the theater. The first time I saw Scream was probably I think at that point it probably was on TV. Like the first Scream movie that I actually saw in theaters was probably Scream 4. I definitely didn't see the original trilogy in theaters.
Okay.
But it was just always trying to, even though obviously the villain was in your face the whole entire time, it's like there was always trying to be this misdirection to be able to make you think that the person that you didn't want to be Ghostface turns out to actually be Ghostface.
Sure.
So overall, without the base of that first movie, obviously we turn into a trilogy, we turn into a franchise, and they make excellent references to those type of things through this whole entire franchise. It's almost like a fourth wall break, almost, because of how they make reference to it in there for it. I think it's just made that movie just stand out.
It's in that realm where it's not always exactly fourth wall breaking, but it establishes and lives by the rules of what horror movies are and tells you what the rules are, where every movie before that lived by those rules, and every now and again something set a new precedent or a new rule, but what the rules are and how horror movies work, they're literally telling you bit by bit like what it is. It's almost like having movies with superheroes where they acknowledge that comic books exist. You know what I mean? Like there's comic books in it. And so So yeah, I would agree. Scream definitely took a different approach to turning the genre on its head and making your villains people who maybe idolize or mimic the things that they saw in older movies, but were just
Mhm.
regular people, quote unquote, if you will. Um, what are the chances? Where do you think this new movie ends up falling? Now you're talking about Nev Campbell being back.
Mhm.
Could Scream 7 pop into your top 3?
I think there's absolutely a chance that that could happen. With
Okay.
7 kind of going back to the roots, just from watching the trailer, we're going back to the beginning. Ghostface is there. He's going to burn it all down. Like, there's a chance that it could inch into it. Like, obviously, Neff Campbell, Sydney in the movie, she has her daughter, and her daughter is the same age as when everything that started for her is about to go down in this movie. I have I have guesses on who Ghostface possibly is going to be in this movie. Um, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be completely wrong, but there's a good chance if they tell this story right, and we know there's going to be some flashbacks in this movie because they've casted, I can't think of his name, that played the first Ghostface. Boo, help me out. What's his name that played the first
Maggie.
Ghostface? Skeet. Skeet
Yeah.
Early. We know his character once again, just like in the previous one, is in it, and I'm guessing it's going to be flashbacks or he's going to be haunting someone. I don't know, but there's going to be a lot of callbacks to the original movie, definitely within this one on here for it. Um,
Yeah.
and if they can do this story well, it absolutely has the potential to be in the top 3.
All right. I agree. We'll wait and see. Um, let's talk honorable mentions.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you did your top 3. There aren't that many movies to begin with,
Right. That's the
so
mainly reason why we didn't do, because
just
otherwise we would be doing.
you just do the whole
um,
thing. So let's not go too deep into it. Just what would
I'll just
what would be your number 4?
Scream 5. Um,
Okay.
Scream 5 was taking, we just did, which was like, it's kind of that soft reboot kind of coming in here. We're bringing more new characters in. We want to try to tell the same original story, but now we got to figure out where we're going to work in this whole new cast, new people into this mix and make it work. Sydney really returning at this point, kind of, I can't say full on return, but this is where you do get to see her a little bit more. Because originally when the movie came out, like, and now it was just titled Scream. So when it was first announced, it was just like, oh crap, they are rebooting this almost. And the same thing, they make the reference to like the soft boot, the reboot, like they do the whole 9 in there for it. But really, to come out by the end of the movie, it is Scream 5 from the title for it, and it makes sense in there for it. But 5 would be my next one up on my list.
Okay. All right. I dig it. You think the Scream franchise better to you than the Final Destination franchise?
Oh. That's a hard one. Like,
is it?
Listen, I love both of these franchises. Like, and listen, they are two totally different beasts of franchises. So,
that's why I'm asking. You can't choose. Are they equal?
I would put them on equal footing. Like, see, Final Destination has got the more supernatural type of feel. Obviously, being able to have premonitions and stuff like that for it. So, it's hard for me to pick one or the other. Honest truth.
Okay.
Final Destination, I would say
at
one
You
point.
can only ever watch one franchise for the rest of your life. Which one are you picking?
Oh, between the two of them, I feel like between the two, would be Final Destination, because I feel like, listen, the Scream story, like if you base it around like these characters and you keep trying, at the end of the day, you're gonna keep bringing it back to the originals. Yes, I agree, they are equal.
That was crazy.
I got a message that came through.
Yeah.
But with Final Destination, the whole premonition thing, you can keep doing it in different ways. Like Final Destination's Bloodline, like at one point I was kind of like, yo, how do you really do this again and make it different? But to take it and make it as so, because one person survived way back down your bloodline, ain't none of y'all supposed to exist. I'm kind of like,
Right.
oh damn, that's I like, okay, that's an interesting spin right there. I feel like
concept, right?
I feel like there's more that you can do within the confines of Final Destination that you can necessarily do with Scream, but
yeah,
either way, they're still equal to me. They're still equal to me. It's
all right. You can't pick.
I can't pick between.
I'm not gonna force you to do it. Look, I want y'all to do me a favor. Under the honorable mentions, just make sure you go to our IG, check out all the KatsuCon content. That's there. Like I said, Kay, shout out to Katsu for us over the last weekend, and captured a lot of stuff. So, we'd appreciate if you just, shoot over to the IG and show us some love, share it, throw some likes on it, all that kind of stuff. Take a look at it so you can see what you missed, because you probably weren't there, because I wasn't there. Neither was Jokes. So yeah, go there and check that out for us. We appreciate it. Time to close out. So just again to remind you guys of our upcoming events, we have BlurCon coming up in a couple of weeks. We are doing our Being Comfortable Being a Geek panel.
Mm-hmm.
It is on Friday, March 8th, in the Richmond Room in the Hilton at 8 p.m. So from 8 to 8:50. Come hang out with us, and then we can all leave together and shoot to the after party. Sounds like a good idea to me. You know what I'm saying? Right, Jokes?
Yeah, there.
And then the following weekend, we'll be at AwesomeCon. Doing our normal press work. There, running around, shooting interviews and talking to people and just kind of catching up with folks and so forth. Right here in the home, in the DMV, 2 back-to-backs. So, looking forward to both of those shows coming back around. Look for us to have a bunch of content coming out of those spaces within the next few weeks. In the next week or so, look for, again, we decided to make some changes to what Movie Club was and kind of what we're doing. So we are rewatching films that are technically now tied to the MCU that weren't MCU before. So we're going to be doing a Spoiler Boys on the Blade trilogy and having a discussion about that you'll see go live by the end of next week. That's more or less where we're starting for that, but we're going to go through almost all of it. We're going to have to leave some things out.
Yeah.
A lot. And there's some trash that isn't
Just don't need it.
maybe worth it. Well, I think I decided over the weekend we might have to do both Ghost Rider films.
I'm not mad at that.
All right, cool. If you're not mad at it, then good, because we're doing
I'm not
it. So yeah. So look for that. I want to thank everybody for hanging out with us this evening, spending your time with us. Again, you could be anywhere else. Special exclusive shout out to the lurkers who are hanging but not chatting. We appreciate you. Hopefully the sound of our voices gets you through whatever it is you're working on while this is playing in the background. Even if you are paying great attention to it, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Jokes.
Mm-hmm.
Tell the folks what I need them to know.
Remember, y'all, just because you have a well thought out plan doesn't make it a good idea.
With that, we're out. Toodles and loos.
Loading snacks.
Pick it up. Get your wing up there now.